Munchkins and viewers alike, it's me Munchie and welcome back to the channel. You haven't seen me for a bit, but I've returned. Thank you guys so much for your patience as I struggle through life right now. But we're all in this together when it comes to hamster keeping, so thank you for being here. Today is a rescue intake story that is quite sad. One of my past adopters contacted me saying that, hey, there is these hamsters on a not pet-related group. Like, it wasn't a rehoming group, it wasn't like a hamsters only group, it was just an area group on Facebook where it looks like a family was trying to rehome 2 hamsters. So she reached out to me asking me if I could take them. She would pay the rehoming fee and pick up these animals because, as you can tell behind me and beside me, they came in the Tiny Tails destruction cages. These cages I reviewed back in 2018. It was like one of my first Tiny Tail videos. These are flimsy plastics. These are not the greatest when it comes to design, structure, and safety for our small rodent companions. So today's video is gonna be me talking about that rescue intake, just kind of going over what you see behind me, and then just hopefully you guys will learn a little bit more about why I rescue these guys and why it's important to provide adequate care and to not impulsively buy these animals. Because I run a small animal rescue, Munchie's Place for Homeless Pets, here in Washington State. We're 501c3 status, we are tax exempt. We intake animals that people surrender to us directly, and I also go out there and rescue off of OfferUp, Craigslist, Facebook Market, places where animals are usually dumped. And when I say dumped, I mean people really just don't care about where or when the animal goes, or even provide any effort to take care of the animal in the first place, because usually it's very impulsive and childlike impulsiveness. We have named them Applejack, Fluttershy, and Pepper Dance. But let me just read the ad first where my past adopter contacted me and showed me. This person says, looking to rehome these female Syrian hamsters, comes with 3 cages and bunches of treats, foods, and beddings, asking a very small rehoming fee. Now, rehoming fees we do pay, and we pay that just because some people will not surrender to a rescue, so there's actually a few methods of how we approach this. Sometimes we'll approach with our rescue, and other times they just don't want that. They want the money. They don't really care if they're going to a rescue or not, so they actually hold off and then try to rehome it to someone who will pay them. We've had that happen before where there was an obvious person that just like got an animal from a pet store, raised the price well past what they paid for the animal, and tried to sell it and try to get money out of it. So when you offer them money or just offer them a lower price or offer to take them for free, they would, you know, cuss you out, get really upset. But in this situation, it can be kind of hard because sometimes people are distrusting of rescues. Now, we are a non-kill shelter. That means we don't make room when we run out of room by euthanizing. That is usually what you see in Florida, Texas, and California, because they are high kill shelter states, because they just have too many animals, not enough resources and funds, not enough room at the shelter, and unfortunately they have to in order to take in the ongoing need of, hey, there's a loose animal, hey, this animal needs to be picked up, hey, what are we gonna do with this animal that's running on the streets? So we can operate thanks to you guys for public funds. So we don't get grants or anything like that. We could potentially apply for grants, but we're not getting grants. We are just relying on the public's help to help us keep going. We will not take in animals that we cannot care for, and we want to make sure that the supplies we have on hand are going towards the animals that we currently have. That way they have a very fulfilling life while still here. If they are here for, you know, well over a year, maybe never get adopted, or has medical needs and must become a sanctuary animal. Some people, they just have the highest superstition of, oh, rescues are evil, rescues are bad, and so sometimes we just don't approach like that. But this past adopter wanted to get them, said that she'll just go out there and grab them. And so when we see the photo here, it looks like there's only 2 hamsters, and of course they're keeping them together. It's like, oh geez. And then they also show the All Living Things rocket ship cage, and so we're like, okay, They are being kept in this. Intake note says this was only $20 to get all of these guys. And of course, there's not a third cage because I want to let you guys know that when we went to go pick up the cages, we just did not have enough room. We were actually doing a surrender intake that day, and they gave us a really big tank topper, and I just didn't have any room. And of course, a tank topper is more useful than things that I just don't use and have reviewed before. So we didn't take all 3 of them, but there was 3 rocket ship cages. Surprisingly enough, they did not hand us 2 hamsters. They handed us 3. One was kept inside of an exercise ball, and the volunteer that went and got them and picked them up, she had to go hurry home, grab an appropriate carrier, and then transport them to us because she just didn't want to leave that poor hamster in an exercise ball. Now, she could have left them in the exercise ball while transporting to us because we do have carriers, although I had 2 carriers on me and I did not actually have 3, so I had to take her carrier. So thank you, dear, for letting me get your carrier. I don't know if you watch my YouTube channel or not, but just thank you for that, because I was expecting 2 and being told, oh, there's a 3rd one. And it's in a hamster ball. I was like, oh no, oh no. And we met really early on, so all the pet stores were not open at that time. Couldn't go grab a carrier. What this volunteer described, the living conditions, was that this family of about, I think there was 3 kids, but there was kids. I know that there was at least a couple kids, but I think maybe it was 3 kids. They were living with some adults and 4 dogs inside of a motel hotel. She described this situation as very sad. I wouldn't say chaotic because I don't think that's the words that she used, but I know that the feeling when we met in person, she described the story, was it was very sad and concerning, especially with how the animals were being kept, because supposedly they only had them for a month before they rehomed them because they fell out of interest. The kids did. Just feeling these cages, they are so grimy. They've been chewed on, but I don't know how extensively they were chewed on. It just kind of looks like some of the sides were chewed on, like right here, and that's about it. But yeah, the cage and just the items feel really greasy. There is some KT Critter Trail tubes attached to the actual Tiny Tails cage, and this comes from a completely different set, so I don't know exactly if this was the previous people they got them from or if they bought it, but they did show the rocket ship cage. So it kind of makes me feel like they went out and got these cages, because honestly, I have been keeping an eye still on Craigslist, OfferUp, and places like that, and I saw nobody listing 3 hamsters with 3 rocket ship cages. It's a possibility they might have got a rocket ship cage from someone selling it just separately online, but again, I didn't even see anybody selling a rocket ship cage, let alone 3 of them, so I think they did go out and purchase rocket ship cages. Hearing the living situation that these guys were in, they might have just lost their home, even though the reason for rehoming was the kids lost interest in them. The living conditions, it gave off a sense of they were not doing well financially. And these are expensive, so I am really shocked that this family was thinking that this was a good idea to get pets as, I guess, maybe comfort for their kids. But I do want to remind the general public out there, if you are financially struggling and also mentally struggling, you should not be getting an animal if you cannot take care of the animal. I know a lot of people, and especially those that have surrendered to us, they struggle with mental illness. And they unfortunately said, I thought this animal was going to improve my mental illness, and it didn't, and I just ended up putting more burden on this animal because I'm struggling myself. So of course, if you're struggling, you're also neglecting the companion that you have. Not everybody with mental illness is struggling like that, but there are several people, especially this year, that have surrendered to us due to mental health decline and getting an animal, saying that they wanted to have this animal to improve their overall well-being, but unfortunately it just did not work out, and they don't want the animal to suffer because of themselves. And that is very kind of them to do, because a lot of people just don't understand how mental illness affects people. And I've been affected by mental illness, so I completely understand where that struggle comes from. There's no shame in that. It just sucks that it did happen, and that animal may or may not have been put in danger for a little bit of time, but you were so brave to come forward and say, I messed up. I want to give this animal a better life. Inside of this one is filthy. There's no bedding up top, but there's urine, and you can see it just caked on. Of course, like I said, it's grimy. Inside there is like 1 inch of bedding at the bottom here, and just everywhere is just littered with their own feces, and it looks like it has not been cleaned in a while. But these people did say that they got their animals from someone else in a different city. These animals they thought were a year old, but they actually look much younger than a year old. They weren't very aware of how old they were. Actually, never mind. It wasn't a month. I am reading this now, and the text says, got them from a family in Spanaway a couple weeks ago. So it was not even a month that they had them for. They had them for a couple weeks? That's even worse. And just saying they lost interest, and I think it's something else going on here. We may never know. Upon intake, most of the hamsters looked like they were at least 5 months old. One looked a little bit older than the others. We did have one hamster, Applejack, exhibit some concerning behaviors. She was head bobbing, she was stargazing. This is the very first Syrian hamster that I've seen stargaze, where she looked back and she would roll over, and it looked almost as if like she was dropped. So I wanted to get her to the vets pronto. And I did. And when we took x-rays and looked at her, they could not find any trauma. However, we sent in blood work because we were a little bit concerned about what was happening with her. And unfortunately, while we were waiting, Applejack did pass away. I found her passed away on my birthday. And then we performed a necropsy the next day, and it turns out she had a heart condition. So she wasn't dropped, but something was affecting just her nervous system overall because of her heart. I still don't have the blood work back originally from her. I think at this point they kind of just ruled out that she had a heart condition and this is what caused her untimely death. She was too young, and we've had so many hamsters pass away before a year old at the cause of heart disease or a heart condition, or a heart just wasn't properly developed in the womb. So it breaks your heart when you hear that, because you take on these animals and you want to make sure that they are in a safe, loving environment. And even though I only got to spend like less than a week with her, I still was happy to take her in. I just felt really bad that this happened. It is a possibility that maybe stress from the previous environment with 4 dogs barking, children handling them, and being in the same presence as other hamsters, because it looked like they honestly were having play dates with these animals. This probably put a lot of stress and pressure on her. It's a possibility that the hamsters might have fought, might have bit each other. I didn't see any wounds or anything on them. I do think that it is a possibility that there could have been mishandling. I don't know how young the children were. I didn't really ask the person to, tell me their ages. They were just young kids. I feel so bad for Applejack, so rest in peace, Applejack. But we do have Pepper Dance, which I named her Pepper Dance because I was kind of going with pony themes, because I picked Applejack first and I was like, oh, that's a My Little Pony character, so let's just have the other ladies be My Little Pony characters. So we got Fluttershy, and she's like the bigger gal. She does have kind of a narrow head. They are hamsters that unfortunately look like they have not had the best genetics or the best start at life. They are kind of, well, at least Fluttershy is a little bit nippy. Like, she will try to follow your finger around and then opens her mouth, and I'm like, no, I am not a chew toy. But she is very sweet. She is big, but I am concerned with her. So I hope that maybe she wasn't, a past mama, or she was, purposefully bred, because backyard breeders, they don't follow genetics. And a lot of hamsters were bred with disabilities and heart condition. They are with us now. I'm very happy to have them. And with these cages in the back, there is some things that I can repurpose and reuse, but the majority of these cages, they break very easy. They are vertical rather than horizontal. These are burrow animals. They need to be in the ground. They need to have bedding depth. Bedding also keeps the ammonia smell away. These things stank to high heavens when we got them and had to have them in the car. If your rodent enclosure stinks, that means you were not cleaning it enough. There is areas where they will go to where you can easily scoop out that peed on bedding and replace it with fresh bedding so you don't have to smell that. Weekly spot cleans and then monthly deep cleans. And if you have an even larger enclosure, like German style enclosures, you don't have to be monthly cleaning. You can actually extend that and just do more frequent spot cleans, because that's a lot of bedding depth to get through. And so you want to make sure that if you have a smaller enclosure like this, and even though this is not appropriate, it's under the 450 square inches of floor space that is approved by the California Hamster Association here in America, you must have bedding. You must have at least 5 to 6 inches of bedding. It used to be a minimum of 3. I would say 4 is more close to minimum, but 5 is minimum. We try to aim for at least 5 to 6 here at the rescue. We have a lot of animals. We have a lot of resources we need to share in between them. So our care is not personal care. But if you guys can have personal care and give your animal the best life, I highly encourage you guys to go all out for your animal. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you liked it, hit like to show your support. Comment down below with anything you would like to say, or maybe your animal that you've recently rescued, tell me their story. And if you're new here and would like to become a part of the Munchkin family, please subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.